Hi, welcome to my video on coterminal angles. Definition of coterminal angles. Angles in standard position. I left off the word position. Angles in standard position with the same reference angle in the same quadrant. That is, they have the same terminal arm. State another coterminal angle for each. So we have a 120-degree rotation. So that means this angle here is 60, that's the reference angle. And if we do a -1, we will go this way and end up on the same terminal arm. So that's 190, 180, and 60 is 240. So 240 degrees negative is coterminal with 120. They end up in the same quadrant on the same terminal arm having the same reference angle. And if we have a rotation of 45 degrees, that's positive. So if we do a -1, we go right around till we hit that terminal arm. And we know that if this is 45, this is a 90. So this is 45. So 90, 180, 270. So it's a 335 negative is coterminal. So a -315 is coterminal with a positive 45. And this is a 80-degree angle here as a reference angle between the terminal arm and the x-axis. That means that this rotation is a 90, 180, 180 plus 60. So this is a 260-degree angle. So coterminal to that, if you want the -1, would be this is 90 and this is 10. This is 10 because 80 and 10 makes 90. So 90 and 10, so this angle, rotation, is a -100. So a -100 and 260 are coterminal because they end up in quadrant 3 with the same reference angle, same terminal arm. And notice they all start from the initial arm on the x-axis. We have an angle here, -20, so coterminal of that would be, if you want a +1, would be that. So that would be 360, take off 20, so that would be a positive 340 degrees would be coterminal to the -20. And a -320, coterminal to that, if you go this way, that's 360 all the way around. 320 is right to here. So that's a positive 40. So coterminal to that would be positive 40 degrees because they both would have the same terminal arm with the same reference angle of 40 degrees in each quadrant. A -210 is here. So that's a -210. So we go this way, which is the positive one. 360 all together. So that makes this angle here 150 degrees. So coterminal to a -210 is 150. Same terminal arm, same reference angle. Now let's look at rotations on a circle. Let me take up a compass and draw a circle with the center 0, 0. Which is right center. 0, 0 is at the origin of the x and y axis. I'm going to draw a circle around with a compass. So this circle doesn't make it has a certain radius. We're not worried about what the radius is. And if I complete this right around, so there's the circle, and the radius is from here to here, so this point right here is r, 0, and that's the radius from there to there. And the radii is the same on the circle. This distance here is r, this distance here is r but is negative, and this distance here is r but is negative. So the radius is, I should say the distance is r, but the point over here is -r, 0. One revolution on a circle is 360 degrees. So we go around the circle once. We leave right here in standard position and rotate once. 90, 180, 270, 360. We'll get a full rotation. One revolution is 360 degrees. So if we want to draw one complete revolution positive, then we'll start at the initial arm and we'll go around once. We'll come back to that initial arm. So that's 360 degree rotation. Draw two complete revolutions positive. So we start on the x-axis, x and y-axis. So two complete, one. We stay outside, so and then we go. So we went around twice. So that's 360. And 360 is 720. So that's a 720 degree rotation. And we want three revolutions, three complete rotations. 1, 2, 3. And we start here and we end here. So that's 360 times 3, and we get 1,080. So 1,080 is 3 rotations positive. Let's continue. Draw one complete negative rotation. Negative rotation starts on the terminal arm, right here, on the x-axis, and we go clockwise. So there's the one complete, so that's a negative 360 rotation. And two rotations negative, 1, 2. So that's a negative 720. And three rotations negative, 1, 2, 3, put the arrow on to indicate, so that's a negative 1,080. State the rotation for each. So if you have a 60, notice this is the initial arm, this is the terminal arm, the reference angle is 60, so the rotation is 360 plus 60, so 360, add on 60, is 420. So this rotation is 420 degrees. One complete revolution plus 60. And right here we got 1, 2. So we got 360 and 360. So that's 720 so far. And right here that's a 45. So that's a 90, 180, and 45. 180 and 45 is 225, so that's 945 degree rotation, because it's two complete revolutions plus the 225. And now we have a negative rotation here, so we have a negative 360. The reference angle is 80, so it's a negative 80. So it's a negative 8 and 440. So that's a negative 440 degrees because you're going clockwise. Reference angle is 80. And right here we're going negative again. So let's see how many revolutions. 1, 2. So it's a negative 720. And we got 180 plus 30 is 210. So that's a negative 930 rotation. Because the reference angle is 30. Again, that's 30, so that's 90, 180, 210 degrees plus the 720. State two positive and two negative coterminal angles for each reference angle. And again, if you want to pause your video and work these out before I do, go ahead. I want two positive ones. So the first one that's going to be positive is this one. if that's 40, then this must be, again, that's a 50, because it's 90 degrees right here. So 90 and 50. So one of them, 90 plus 50, is a, so one of them is that rotation. So if we continue to go and keep going, so here's another positive one. So it's 140 plus 360. So that gives us another coterminal angle to 140 is 500. Now we want a negative one. I'm going to draw the diagram here so we won't get confused with the negatives, but they can get confusing. So there's the reference angle. So a negative one would be this way, and that's negative 180 and 40. So that's negative 220 is one negative coterminal angle. And another one, complete revolution again, is this one. So that's a negative 220 and a negative 360. So we have a negative 580. So two positive ones, two negative ones, and they all have the same reference angle in quadrant 2. Notice this is quadrant 2. Because this is in quadrant 2 with a reference angle, these four angles are all coterminal. They all end up in the same quadrant, which is quadrant 2, with the same reference angle of 40. In other words, you got the same terminal arm. And to do another one, reference angle here, this is quadrant 1, 2, 3. This is the third quadrant. There's the reference angle, so let's do one rotation. No, one first angle here is 180, so one first angle I'm going to do is 250. And I said, now let's do another one, go positive. So there's the second one. So 250, add on 360, gives us 610. So 610 rotation, 610 degrees is the same coterminal angle as 250, because they end up in quadrant 3 with the same reference angle, same terminal arm. And again, I'll draw another diagram for that, so it won't be so confusing. There's the reference angle. So I got one a negative one now. So the smallest negative one that you can have, I should say, got to be careful with the word here. The first one is, that's 70, so that's a 20. So it's 90 and 20 is 110. Or we could say that's 180 right here. Take off 70 gives you 110. So it's negative. And we take the negative 110 and we go negative 360. We get a negative 470 degrees. So we keep going. We come right back again. So we got negative 470. So the four of these angles, 250, 610, negative 110, negative 470, are all coterminal angles. Why? Because they end up in the same quadrant, quadrant 3, with the same reference angle of 70. And that's important to know, very important. Okay, which angles are coterminal? So we got 450. 450 is too large, so 420. Let's look at 420. 420 is 360. So 420, take off 360, gives us a 60-degree angle. So that means right here at 60 degrees. So the reference angle for 420 is 60. And what happens to negative 330? Negative 330 is 90, 180, 270, and 60 more. So there it is there. So if that's a negative 330, this reference angle is 30. So they're not coterminal. And 390 degrees, put a degree on that, is 360 and 30 more. So, which two? Negative 330 and 390 are they're all in the first quadrant, but the reference angles are the same for these two. And 135, let's draw that one, is 90, and that's 135, and that's 45 because it makes up 180. So the reference angle is 45. And I have to draw negative 315, 90, 180, 270, and there's 315, 315, and 45 degrees makes 360. So these are not coterminal because they're in different quadrants. 495 is 360. Okay, 495. Let's take off the 360. 5, 3, 1. So we go out right here, 135. So that's a 45 reference. So this one and this one, they both end up in the second quadrant with a 45 reference. This one, negative 315, ends up in the first quadrant, so they're not, these are coterminal. And a negative 150 is negative 90. There's a negative 150, and the reference angle is 30 in the third quadrant. 330 is 90, 180, 270, right down there. And if that's 330 to there, then this must be 30. So they're not coterminal. How about 210? 210 is 90, 180, and 30 reference. So 210, both of these end up in the second quadrant with the same terminal arm, same reference angle. So these are coterminal. And a negative 380, again, let's see, one complete revolution. So that's a negative 360 and 20 more. So that's a reference angle of 20. So that's the negative 380. So you have to be coterminal to this one, you have to end up in the fourth quadrant with a reference angle of 20. So 340 degrees is 90, 180, 270, right around till we get to here. Terminal arm is there, and that angle is 20. 340 ends up with a reference angle of 20, same quadrant. And negative 740 is kind of large, so what I'm going to do is, that's negative, oh, I got to go negative. So here we go. Negative 360, negative 720, and 20 more. So that's a 20 reference. So that's the negative 740. And they're all coterminal, because they all end up in quadrant. This is quadrant 4. Quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. They're all coterminal. And number 5, 120 degrees. Start 90. There's 120. And if that's 120 degrees, then this is a 60. Because 120 and 60 is 180. 210. 210 is 90, 180 plus more. So 210, that ends up to be a 30 there. So that's not coterminal because this is the second quadrant, this is the third. And 510. 510 is 360. So 510, we're going to take off 360, is 150. 150 is a 90. 150 is 90, and that's 60. So that's a 30. So that ends up in the second quadrant. That's quadrant 2, 60 reference. This ends up in the third quadrant with a reference of 30, but they're different quadrants, so they're not coterminal. This one ends up in the second quadrant, but the reference angle is 30. So there's none. None of them are coterminal in this one. Just be careful when you're drawing them. And notice that 510, I took off the 360 to get 150 when I went 150. Then remember that's a 90, and 60 makes 150, so there's a 30 reference angle here. And that brings us to the end of the video on coterminal angles. Very important to know about. Well, actually, if you learn each of the videos, in each of the videos as you go, then when you get to the end, you'll understand how everything works. If you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Visit my website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content that's on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you for viewing my video. Bye-bye.